In this lesson, you're going to learn how to keep things clean with just your fretting hand. We're going to practice hammer-ons, apply a vibrato, get it sustaining, and then release the note, but strictly with the left hand. So it's left hand dampening exercises, or fretting hand dampening exercises. Dampening, damping, they're both synonymous. If you look at your diagrams 1A and 1B, you will see you have E minor pentatonic plotted out over the entire fingerboard. That's what we're going to use for the first half of this course. You're going to be jamming over an E blues, that same thing that you heard me do in the beginning of the lesson, beginning of the course. So let's look at the fourth string, for example. You look on diagram 1A, you can see it on the fourth string, you have an E in the second fret. Now it's going to be important that you don't just work on your technique in this course, you want to master the minor pentatonic scale. And I said master it. I want you to know it really well on each string in a lot of different ways. Okay, let's just take your index finger. Now you can't see what I'm doing with my picking hand. I'm actually implementing the dampening technique that you learned in the previous lesson so that only the fourth string can ring. We've talked about this. Remember I said don't go to this lesson until you understand lesson 1. You can do it. So hopefully you've done your homework. Let's listen to what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this with a clean sound at first. When I have my students practice playing the guitar like this, it's amazing how they lose interest or forget about the note and don't realize that they need to learn to operate at those very soft volumes. Obviously with this clean sound, I don't need to use a noise gate. So the noise gate isn't chopping my note down after the fact. If I go to an overdriven sound, I go... The noise gate isn't chopping my note down. You hear the string just rubbing against the fret. Now there's some noise, obviously, but you hear it's still my note. You can get the metal-to-metal scraping sound if you practice this quite a bit too, and it's kind of harsh, it's like fingernails down the blackboard, but it's something you need to do. So practice this with a clean and a dirty sound and various amounts of distortion. I've got quite a bit going on here, but now in that case, I picked the note. You want to practice balancing your hammer-on and your pick notes so they're the same volume. That means for most of you guys, you're going to have to lighten up your picking. I would suggest you practice picking with the first finger and the thumb, and I'll show you a camera angle that will demonstrate that in a few minutes, but primarily, we're talking about not just sustain here, but left-hand dampening. So left-hand dampening means this. Let me do it with overdrive. You can hear the gate shutting in and off. I've got it to where it won't shut down. There you go. Getting some noise, so I need to gate it a little bit more, but you get the idea on this. Hear that's cleaner? I just rolled the volume back a little bit so I'm getting a little less signal going to the amp. But you hear how clean I'm able to dampen. Now I did not use my picking hand, my right hand, to block the string. That's another way to block your note. In that case, I'm putting the pick up against the string. We'll talk about that a little later. So the purpose of this lesson is to get it to where you can see your minor pentatonic scale over the entire neck. Okay, the lesson just got big there, didn't it? We call these hammer-ons from nowhere. That's a phrase that was coined back in the 80s. I am not picking these notes. And you need to practice that on every string, right through diagram 1A, every single string. I'm just going up. And I want to tell you something. When I pick my finger up to change positions, I am not blocking it with my right hand. So that means the secret is that when you play the note, you hammer it, you put your vibrato on there, get it to sustain however long you want. I mean, obviously, strive to just get it to where you're working right here. Here, the noise gate's kind of turning on and off because it depends where you set the threshold. You can work on your vibrato, and I'm not going to talk a whole lot about vibrato in this course. I've talked about it in some other courses, but experiment with what kind of vibrato you're going to do. Classical vibrato, you know, whatever you decide to do, getting radical. But hear how it's all about keeping the note ringing. Hear how I'm scraping it against the fret? Okay, now listen to this. Here I just cleaned up. What I did is I actually pulled the strings, I pulled the fourth string away from the third string. Because if I'm sitting there going, and I have this diagonal posture, look in the inset video. Do you see how I'm coming in diagonally, a traditional vibrato position? One of the downsides about that is you can get some noise crashing into the next lowest string. And it's a different sound when you come in with your knuckles parallel to the neck. So I don't want to go on and on about vibrato. That's a big issue. But the idea is to get it to where when you change, let me turn down a little bit to get rid of some of that noise. I'm going to demonstrate what happens if you're not careful. Listen closely. I am not pulling off. I'm not going. Hear the difference? When the pull off, I'm actually making the note the same volume. So I'm pulling down to the floor. But if I just hammer on, and then I pick my finger straight up quickly, the string sticks to the tip of my finger, to the callus, right? So it's all about this thing. Look at the video. Do you see how I'm relaxing the string? So what I tell people is if you touch the notes on the guitar, it means you're not pressing the string down, but your fingers against the string, right? Left-hand staccato I define as the following. You relax your fretting finger or fingers and let the strings lift themselves up off the fret. Do you see how I remove my hand? No noise. That string could be ringing even with all this gain, but I'm showing you how careful you can develop your technique to where it's really clean. Do it with every finger. Do it with reinforced fingerings, which means if you're on the third finger, the second and the first will be behind it, or maybe just a second. In the same fret, in adjacent frets, all the different options. Now there I'm using a classical guitar vibrato. Okay? Then you're going to do the same idea on different strings. Let's say we go to the fourth string. And as you practice this and you're working on your sound, what are you thinking? You should be thinking, if I'm in the key of E, that's E, that's number 1. See in diagram 1A how the letter name is spelled out? Diagram 1B, the scale degree is spelled out. You can practice all your different kinds of vibratos. And this is going to help you understand the fingerboard and also sing along so you hear the note. And you can practice this against your jam track. I've given you a nice long jam track, 5-6 minutes long, so you get some reps in if you run through that 2 or 3 times. And then on every string, you're just going to practice playing each note with each finger, right? Okay? And here's another important consideration. When I build a guitar or buy a guitar, I don't keep any instrument that doesn't have sustain on every note. I've bought some high-end guitars that had maybe one dead note. I got rid of them because if you have a note that just doesn't sustain, there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to limit you if you want to play a long tone. But I also, when I test a guitar, I play every note with a vibrato, and I gradually apply the vibrato. Can you hear how the overtones are changing? Hear it mold, it's molding and shaping the note kind of vowel-like. Did you hear that? How just this develops your touch, so you're not just attacking the instrument. There's a lot of finesse in this, and this is how you get that great horn-like sound, vocal sound. Did you hear that? And then you'll find what I call the magical notes, the special notes on the guitar. Can you hear how that note changes? And also little subtle things about how you apply the vibrato. And applying it slowly, playing it dry, no vibrato, and then gradually applying it. This also helps your ear at hearing all those microtones. So you could go on all day, couldn't it? You might say, well, that note's so soft. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to get used to not just playing on 12 all the time. And you'll notice how, for me, I love the fourth string. It sounds like a cello. It's your smallest diameter wound string, and it just responds, and it's not too noisy. You don't get a whole lot of squeak. It's just an interesting sound. But if you go to the lower string, they start to growl, don't they? And again, you're hearing a little bit of noise every now and then because I'm not blocking the string I'm playing with my right hand. If I went, it's going to keep things even cleaner. So that's why I tell people your pick hand dampening is your insurance policy. This lesson is going to teach you how to get as clean as possible with just how you touch the guitar with your left hand, in addition to working on sustain, your intonation. All right, now I'm not going to spend any more time going through what you need to practice. But I suggest you take your guitars. Notice I said guitars because I know we're all guitar junkies. I have too many, but I don't want to give any up. Play every one of your guitars. And if you have different pickup configurations, try every different pickup configuration. If you have different amps, try different amps. And if you have different gain structures, all the different things, and learn your instruments really well. Like I can tell you on each one of my guitars which notes are the magical notes, which ones maybe have certain qualities and characteristics. And to me, that's really knowing your instrument, because then it becomes a tool that you can express yourself with. So go through on every string, and remember what you're doing with your picking hand is you're blocking all of the other strings. That's why lesson 1 needed to be mastered before you went to this lesson. Okay, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about how to get sustain, some exercises for your fretting hand just to get lots of sustain.